Thanks. Hey, welcome everybody. It is October 8th ESInet user group meeting. I'll call this meeting to order. Remind everybody to sign in online through the link provided. The meeting is being recorded, and to let you remind everybody that we do not have chat feature due to limitations that were set forth a couple of months ago. We will start off with the typical agenda of the issue tracker. Tracy.
Hey, let's pull that good thing up here. Okay. Good morning, everybody. Thanks for hopping on today. We'll go through some of the issue trackers. There are some items that I received updates on yesterday. I do have a couple that I'm going to ask for both my teammates and some of the PSAPs to help me with today because I didn't have them available. And I know I have a few folks traveling too, so let me make it so I can at least see the participants so that if I ask someone on my team a question, I know if they're here. This top one here with the AdCom 911, I know we were replacing the DS3 circuits. The last communication that I had with my team is that there was some information that Lumen needed from the PSAP to complete this. I know, Jeff, you're on, but I know you're traveling, so I don't know if anyone has better information on that one than I do.
I'm on, Tracy. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
The last piece of this to have this project completed is to get the numbers ported, and the directions and information that's actually would need to come from AdCom itself. They've got that. So at this point, we're waiting for that to complete and finalize the project itself. So I don't know if anybody from AdCom is on and can speak to that or not.
So the numbers are being ported right now, or we're still waiting for them?
Well, at this point, we're waiting for them to get the numbers ported.
Okay.
So that's a coordinated effort. So they will have to work on making sure that the timing is right for it and get that put in through the portal itself.
Okay. And then the next one too, I kind of had stayed out of this conversation because it's been directly with Intrado for El Paso Teller and kind of the issue of not seeing actual reports and stats status. Has that changed at all? Are we still needing help from Intrado? Are you getting the help? I think this is Matt, right, with El Paso. I don't know if I see. Oh yeah, he is. No updates on that one, guys?
I don't see Matt Toll on the meeting.
Okay. I can separate, I can go back with him directly and see, because I don't know that we have the people he's working with at the ECATS group on. I don't think they're invited to this meeting. So the next one, I'll follow up on that one. I will take that action. The next one, I do know that Andrew is on, and typically my Westco folks are on this one. I'm copied on emails where the examples are being shot through, but I don't think it's complete. I think it's still being worked on. Is that accurate for Andrew?
Yes. Alexander gave the NOC a couple of examples from this week, and the NOC stated last week that they cleared up a couple things in the switch. They didn't think that was the issue, and they were working with SS7 to trap some calls to see if that would tell us anything, but we haven't gotten an update since then.
Okay.
Yeah, this is Alex from Westco. That's the same that we're at. So thank you, Andrew.
Cool. I'll add a October 8th update just so we know that the NOC is still in communication with Alex, and Andrew's on top of this one. The next section that I tried to break this up a little bit so it was easier to follow. Next section we have our projects. I think we all know that the big one is the network performance project. Couple different phases with this one. The middle mile project is the one that's being updated quarterly. So we aren't providing updates during this call. Those come from my regulatory group per the requirements. So they'll be working on that at the end of the quarter. As far as the overall projects with getting the diverse circuits into each location, I actually do have a couple updates to share on that one. My manager has had several meetings with different levels of management at Lumen over the last few days, few weeks actually, but we did have what I think is some good news come out on Friday. And we have a couple dedicated folks that maybe weren't engaged with this in the past, as they will be moving forward. And I don't know, Stephen, if you want to bring up that little kind of picture that I sent to you, the network improvements. So it's going to be myself, and Tamika will be my counterpart. She had about 3 conflicts during this call today, but she's going to be my internal expert is what I'm calling her, because she has access into all of these systems to see where every circuit order is, what stage it's in. She is going to work directly with our team who works with GTT so we can get some accurate FOC dates for you guys. This all kind of came together at the end of last week. So her and I, we actually are meeting every other day for 2 hours to just try and confirm that the spreadsheet's accurate to begin with. And then what I'd like to propose to you all, and please let me know if it's acceptable or if you're looking for something different, but I already give you the circuit order, or not the circuit order, the ESInet tracker updates every Thursday. I make sure they're updated, send them out, and they're distributed. What I would like to do is include some additional information around this project. And what we would be doing is on Thursdays, I am going to send a list of the locations that we expect to have a third-party vendor on site for the following week. So I will put it in the email that goes to the entire group. You're going to know, I'm just throwing this out there because I haven't looked at the list yet, but Weld County, somebody, Comcast is going to send an affiliate out on October 14th. They are coming specifically for this project, right? And that way you're going to know that they're there. The notification is going to come from me instead of a generated email that pops out of our systems that are not always easy to read or follow. So I'm going to send that in the overall Thursday meeting. I'm also going to email you guys directly. So if it is somebody that's going to be on, I don't even know who to pick on, but I'll just say Kathy, if they're coming to your location, I'm going to send you a separate email that has a little more detail so that you know, to the best of what we know, who's coming, right? Sometimes Comcast is going to send an affiliate. So we'll give you all the information that we have specific to your site, so that you have something separate coming from me. It's legit, it's tied to this project. And then finally, what is being proposed is the day after they're supposed to be on site. I would like to follow up with those individual folks as well. Number one, to make sure they came on site, right? And they did what they were supposed to do and there weren't any issues. Because what Tamika will then do is she will take any feedback, good or bad, back to the team so that we're communicating to our vendors that, they didn't call, they didn't show up on time, they didn't know what they were doing. Those are all things that you guys have shared with me that have taken place at other locations. So we need to share that feedback. And that way, if it's a particular vendor that's having some problems, it's going to be easier to narrow down. I'd like to be able to go back to them and say, this site went off without a hitch, your tech did what they were supposed to do, and, everything's fine. But just to kind of close the feedback loop so that we're tracking successes and issues as well. And the final step, I am going to be in contact when I send this out on Thursdays. I'm including the folks at Lumen that are able to dispatch Lumen techs out to your site. It's not necessarily part of this project, and we do have some limitations on whether or not we can get someone to your specific location on the exact day and time that the vendor's going to do it. But he's going to try, And especially for those locations where they're going to need access to a locked room, or it's a remote site, or, you know, issues that have come up in the past where they couldn't get to what they needed to finish the job. Jason knows who those folks are and what locations need somebody there. So he has a list of people that are going to do kind of best effort to be on site. And that's something that, you know, we'll monitor and see, you know, if they're getting out there, great. And if they're not, and there's some spots that they need to be, we can work on that. But that part's kind of new. It's not a normal part of the process, if you will, but you know, this whole process being through a tariff and working with a third-party vendor, which we didn't do when we initially did ESInet, it's just different. It's a different project and it has a few more moving parts. So I'm hoping with better communication, it starts to help and this starts to flow through a little bit better. We're also going to start looking at the locations where both circuits are in place and ready to be activated. And when that happens, we'll have a schedule. Most of you have done this before, where it's going to be a Lumen activation engineer along with Entrado, along with myself. We'll get both circuits activated. We will do test calls. You know, we'll cut over to the new IPVPN circuits. And then the third phase will be to go in and disconnect the old ones. So it's kind of going to be 3 projects at the same time. I need to get the circuits in place. Then we need to activate and test them. And then we need to disconnect the other ones. So tell me what you guys think, because like I said, Tamika and I have met for about, I don't know, several hours every day this week, and we're trying to come up with a place to start.
Yeah, I want to open up the floor for some questions. I appreciate you guys putting your heads together and coming up with a workflow and designating you, Tracy, as the point of contact for all this. So before we keep going, is there any questions for Tracy? Because this is hopefully a good change for everybody.
Yeah, but I don't know if you can see hands up. Looks like Carl had his hand up first and then Kimberly.
Yep, Carl. Sorry, I had my screen shifted. So go ahead, Carl.
Yeah, Tracy, I think that sounds much better. I need to confirm that they've hooked up both circuits for our center, because if they did, they came in and basically hooked up the second circuit to the same fiber that they already hooked the last one up to. So I'm not sure how it's redundant. And then also the last meeting, they said you guys would reach out and try to get more for the ones that were just Lumen, that you try to reach out and get another provider. So we're not going to go live until we could get more information.
Okay.
On this.
Carl, can you remind me which PSAP you have?
Garfield County.
Okay.
And I mean, we have internet they're installing at the same time, which is a separate issue, but they're doing more work on that than they have for the ESInet. I mean, because the fiber truck's been here several times for the internet, and they basically just show up for the Ethernet connectivity, plug some stuff in and leave.
Okay.
So I'm not sure how that's diverse.
Okay. So I know I have sent an email internally asking how to get a different vendor out for your second circuit. I'll follow back up on that. And I need to confirm with Tamika if we're showing both circuits have been installed. That's part of what we're going to start doing next week, because we'd like to confirm which locations have 2 diverse circuits installed, you know, where available, because there are some locations where we don't have a vendor that would go out there. And then what we like to do is start scheduling the activations. And I know we're going to run into some issues during the holidays, you know, both for you guys, Entrado and Lumen. Everything gets a little bit crazy by mid-November, but we do want to try to do a few of these between now and the end of the year, just to, you know, one at a time and make sure everything's working right. So I will follow up on that today. I have another meeting with Tamika this afternoon. So we're kind of touching base every morning and every afternoon. So I'll know today. As far as if both of them are there, and I'll circle back with my team to see how we can change the second one if it is still Lumen.
Thank you.
Kimberly.
Thanks, Steve. Thanks, Tracy, for outlining this. I have a couple of questions. You made a comment about sending us dates of when they're going to be on site. If we're not available because an escort is required, will CenturyLink then be working with the third party to reschedule?
Yes, and you can throw that back to me, and
Okay.
I go back and just say, you know, you you can't go to Estes Park on the 17th. How about this date? You know, we can't tell them when to show up, but we have the ability to let them know that the date doesn't work for you.
Okay, great. And then you also stated about having a best effort to have that CenturyLink tech there to meet them. I would just really recommend that best effort's great, but this is a CenturyLink driven project, and what we're finding is that third-party tech is definitely arriving very confused and not knowing what they're supposed to be doing. So having your tech there with the proper internal contacts to be able to reach back out and give guidance if that third-party tech is lost will be really helpful. So I'm hoping that that CenturyLink field tech is going to be available more often than not.
And I'll
go
be
ahead.
honest with you. Sorry, Kimberly. I just pulled him into this yesterday, and he definitely understands the importance. So let me just circle back. And I mean, I did definitely make it clear that it would be extremely helpful for everybody.
Yeah, and having that CenturyLink tech also briefed on what's going on with the project, because the CenturyLink tech that came out in Estes Park made lots of comments that he had no idea what was going on. So having them briefed and folded in on this is the work order, this is what needs to be accomplished, and almost signed off on by your field tech before that third party leaves would be awesome.
Okay.
And then for when you say that you're going to do add in the spreadsheet the current status for each PSAP, I've sent some emails, just pure confusion, and I don't really have a good answer back on what was installed at Estes Park, because it is fixed wireless. This is supposed to be an Ethernet project. It looks like it's using satellite backhaul. So I'm just looking for some more details about what was specifically installed for this Ethernet diverse carrier project for Estes Park. So if you can just add that as an open item for me, that would be great.
Yep. I can actually, like I said, when I get back with my internal team, we'll pull all of the data from Estes Park and I'll get you something.
All right, thank you.
Any additional questions for Tracy? Seeing none, I've got a quick one. Tracy, if we encounter a third-party vendor that does not meet the security requirements for our facility, is that something you need to know about?
So these are the sites that, because I know you guys, we've talked about it, how some certain locations that need that, what is it, CGIS certification, is that?
Well, they don't necessarily need the CGIS certification or need to be part of the vendor program, but specifically for ours, if you're going down into our data center, we do a criminal history, and per policy for and I'm sure it's very common across the state, you know, anybody that's a convicted felon can't access those areas. Those are CGIS requirements. While it hasn't happened with this project with us, it's certainly happened with other IT type projects where a third party vendor has to get access to the data center, whether it's pulling fiber. And that in particular employee, while we can't share why, they don't meet the security requirements. As the coordinating entity, do you guys need to know when somebody from a third party vendor does not meet the security requirements?
I mean, I'd have to confirm with someone else on the Lumen team. I would say yes, because obviously if they don't meet the requirements, you're not going to let them in to do the work, right?
That is correct.
So I would be the one that you would communicate that back to, because I'm going to be the primary contact for the PSAP for everything. So you guys don't have to kind of pick and guess who to contact. And just let me know. And then again, I'd share it with Tamika so we can go back to the vendor team and say, you know, I don't even know what we're allowed to tell them other than we need to reschedule someone else to go on site.
Yeah, that would be our expectation. We just want to make sure it's communicated, because there's times where these third-party vendors, their hiring processes may not be the same for all individuals. And occasionally somebody is attempting to do some work that shouldn't be getting access.
Understood. I mean, honestly, for anything that happens from the time they show up to your location, or, you know, I'm hoping it doesn't happen often that they don't show up. Just, I would say yes, have the PSAP reach out directly to me, and I'll be the contact that circles back and provide you next steps. And,
Sounds
you know,
great.
what we can do is just use the email chain, because I'm going to send you you know, for Boulder County, I'll be sending you an email that says someone's coming on the 14th. And I'll probably reply to that on the 15th and make sure they came. And if there were any issues, you know, we're going to have a track record of everything that happened at your site.
Great, thank you. Troy.
Yes, hey Tracy. Here at Vail, we do have both of our circuits in place. And while, you know, we did get the acknowledgement that you're going to be working on this. Do we have an approximate time frame on that?
As far as activation?
Or reaching out to the sites that do have both the circuits in place, and just starting the activation process. Yeah, I was just wondering if we have, and you may have said this, but just wondering if we have an approximate time on that, 1 month, 3 months.
Are you volunteering to go first?
Sure.
I'll put you on the spot like that.
I mean, I think it'd be nice to do it before the snow flies, you know, being in Vail.
So like I said, we're confirming, well, I say we, Tamika is actually confirming this week that both are ready to move forward, right? That we're not waiting for any other little connection or tweak. She just wants to kind of dot the I's and cross the T's to make sure that, you know, we're doing everything we can, that when we have Entrado on the phone, the activation works, the test call works, you know. I know sometimes there's going to be hiccups, but we don't want that to be the norm. So Troy, let me check with her, and if everything looks good for Vail, I'm fine with getting a date scheduled with Entrado and moving forward with you.
Okay. Yeah, I just was getting some questions from my infrastructure engineer, so just want to be able to give him a little bit of a timeline on that. But yeah, keep us in mind and reach out.
Okay, yeah, I can tell you by the next call, I'm gonna have a list of folks, but I was planning to reach out to, like, I don't know, 5 or 6 folks that are ready and just say, do you want to, and do these dates work? So let me talk to her, and then I'll reach out to you and see what might work.
All right, sounds good. Thanks, Tracy.
Anyone else? Any other questions? All right, Tracy, I'll let you keep going.
Okay. And like I said, other updates will be coming, right? When the 2 circuits are ready and when we want to activate and when we need to disconnect. What I would like to ask you guys is, if something isn't working or if this isn't enough or you need different information, let's just touch base and see what that is. Because that's the whole intent of Tamika and I taking this on, is to make sure you have the information you need and that it's as most accurate as possible. So that's kind of the overall update for this project. If you want to pop back to the tracker spreadsheet, I think we have a few more things on there.
I think Jennifer's projecting or sharing screen.
I did switch. Are you guys not seeing my screen?
No, we're seeing the last document, the PDF. There we go.
Wow, Zoom is slow today.
Not quite ready to work today. So looking at the other updates, these were updates to be provided as far as phase 1 and phase 2. I know these are with our planning and engineering folks. I don't have a specific update or change for you guys today. I can glance real quick or just shout it out there. I don't know if anybody from Lumen was able to join the call today that would have an update on this. I don't think so. But I did send something out this morning to my group, and if I hear back today, I'll update this again. But these 3 all kind of tie into our planning and engineering folks. The next one that my team is a part of will be the 911 transfer capabilities across state lines. Colorado, Nebraska, I believe is done. I know on our last call, I was asked to make sure that the locations impacted made test calls. Most of them have. I'm waiting to confirm that Weld has been able to make those transfers successfully. So as soon as I can get confirmation on that one, we're going to close the Nebraska, Colorado transfers. So I think it was Phillips County maybe and Sedgwick have confirmed that they were able to update their CPE and make successful test calls. For New Mexico, that one is still going to be some contractual documents between Motorola and Lumen. We do have a representative on our team working on that, but it isn't complete. It's with the legal folks at both locations. So what they're trying to do is make it generic so that this isn't only going to be Colorado, right? We want to be able to do this across the United States so that, Iowa, New Jersey, Minnesota, it's kind of a generic form that everybody can make this work. New Mexico, I think, will be next because they're very much engaged. I did follow up. I think, Kimberly, it was you asking about Wyoming because that's very close to your territory.
Sorry, Tracy, could I interrupt for a second before you move on? The contact I have at Motorola that's working on New Mexico reached out and asked if we could, or if he could get an update, because apparently the last he's heard is that Entrado is looking over the contract, but that's been over a month ago and he hasn't heard anything since. So would it be possible for you to either check with Entrado, or maybe I can connect the two of you again and you could work with him on getting that, because he's wondering what the holdup is.
Yeah, if you send that to me, I can actually pull, Angela is working on that for Lumen, so I can get a hold of her and find out where we're at.
Sounds great. Thank you so much.
So I checked with Jeff and Kevin and a few other folks on Wyoming. There's not connection between Colorado and Wyoming. It can be done, but there would be builds required, and funding as far as who would pay for that. So there isn't really a formal project between Colorado and Wyoming. I can work with Jeff to kind of see what that looks like, and Kevin, but it is not something that's gone any further than the last time we talked, just because the connectivity isn't necessarily there like it is in lots of other places. So the next one, I highlighted this in yellow, and I think maybe I just decided last month I needed more action items than I already had, because I thought someone had asked us to clean up some of the duplicate star codes that are located within the state of Colorado. I incorrectly thought that was Kathy, and I'm sorry that I sent you the question. I do know how to do this now, and I do have resources in place. Like I said, I don't know if I just lost my brain for a little bit, or I just don't remember who had asked for this to be done, but is there, Jennifer?
Yeah.
Oh, good. I was like, I couldn't have just made this up.
No.
Okay. So Jennifer, I have information. I'll send it to you. It's pretty simple. I have a list of all the star codes now for Colorado, latest and greatest from Entrado. My team has confirmed that's what they have. I will send it to you. The process really is you telling us which star code you would like to keep. And then, of course, you would need to notify the PSAPs so that they know which one is in play, and then Entrado deletes the rest.
Okay, I think I'll probably do it the other way, which is to reach out to the PSAPs and say, which star codes would you like to keep? And then we'll go from there.
Okay. 100% fine. They just, and it's quick. I mean, really, Kimberly or Kim Haig told me it's just an email and she can go in and take care of that on the Entrado side. So I will send you the list right after this call.
Okay, sounds great.
I feel a little better now that I didn't make up a project for myself. We added line 16 not too long ago because there were meetings taking place between Colorado and Entrado around ECAT's trouble tickets. And in the last couple months, I have been included in those calls and conversations. So I think we added this just so that, number one, I could be added to those meetings. And that way, if there are locations or ticket numbers that aren't getting answered, I'm aware of them. So I don't know if this needs to continue to stay on the issues tracker, because I feel like we've completed it. I do participate in those, and I do escalate now. It's as part of the process with ECAPs if somebody isn't getting answers. So I'll let Kathy and crew let me know if you want to keep this on here. I don't know that there'll be any other updates unless there's a specific ticket where we're having a problem, kind of like up at the top where we are calling out a specific location for ECAPs.
Tracy, this is Kathy. I think our issue that I brought up was the fact that Aurora had been put underneath the Arapahoe umbrella. And I don't know if that's been corrected. So I don't know if you can follow up on that. But I know that at least a couple of weeks ago, I saw a routing request come in that was for Aurora, but I have not seen one since. So I don't know if you want to follow up and see what they're doing with that. Every
Yes.
time I see one, I forward it to ECATS.
Okay.
And if I see another one, I'm happy to send it to you as well.
No, you don't have to send me anything. Let me follow up because I thought that there was some reasoning around why that was happening, and it was my understanding that they were going to reach out to you, but let me follow up and get the answers. So let's leave it there for now, specifically for yours.
All right, thank you.
Okay. We kind of touched a little bit. The CGIS requirements was brought up on the last call. Tim and Tressa helped me. We did look at the tariff. There it says, certain locations within Colorado require this, and we are aware of that. So what I'm wondering, and Lumen folks can correct me if I'm wrong, does someone at Lumen already have a list of which sites require this, and I just need to track it down internally? Or is that something someone can send to me? Because I'd like to know if there are certain locations where I need to send a particular technician out that has this certification.
Hey, Tracy, it's Jennifer.
Hi.
I think that Lumen collected this information as part of the surveys that were sent ahead of the last mile diversity process. So that may be information that CenturyLink already has if you want to go back to those surveys.
I do. I will go back to the account team and find out if they can share it.
Hi, this is Jeff. Jennifer, I looked back through everything that I have on this, and I couldn't find where we actually got those. Can those be sent again by chance?
Well, I don't know. I'm basing that off of something that someone said at a previous meeting, and I didn't get a survey because I don't have a PSAP. So can someone who got those surveys, is that a question that was on it? And can you provide some enlightenment here? Matt, your hand's up.
If I remember correctly, it was me that brought it up, but originally it was Kimberly that was the progenitor of the ask because of all of these concerns. And so the agreement, and I think Tracy, you were in that original meeting, was the PSAPs could send such requirements so that you would know and could prepare accordingly.
Yes, I remember asking the question. As of today, do not know which locations have this requirement. So if it was sent to me, I must not have understood what it was for because I don't have a list.
I think we were all expecting that the Lumen team would manage that as a part of managing this process.
Manage which locations have this requirement?
Yeah, in other words, send the survey out or an email out and please respond as you need.
So Jeff, I think maybe we just need to ask the question again.
Yeah, Tracy, let's take this offline. I'll get with you and figure out the best next step.
Yes, I'll find some time when you're back, and I don't mind sending it out if you can just help me draft it and I can collect and record responses.
Okay.
I'll work on that this week as well. The last item is just a reminder, we're leaving this on here, statewide ECATs. This has already kind of been rolled out a couple years ago. A lot of you have this service. I believe last time I spoke with my counterpart in Entrado, we still have 13 PSAPs that do not have ECAPs. I think we all know it is being it is being billed, but it isn't installed. And all 13 of these locations, there's a few of them that are working through issues with Entrado, but there's a few that we never have received the initial IP information form back on. So if there are folks out there that are not using ECAPs and want to, it's a one form that needs to be filled out with Entrado, and then we get the equipment sent out to you, provide the training, and get you rolling on some of these reports. Those of you not using it, if you need a little bit more detail as to what it provides, I do have a list of the suite of reports that you get, and I'm happy to share that with you as well. So as per Lumen's part, I continue to send a monthly email out to the PSAPs that aren't using it and just offering our assistance to get you turned up and going. I think that is it. I added 2 additional tabs to this because it was easier on me to keep track of things. I know we have several locations that are going with Carbine. Those require some coordination with Lumen and Entrado and the PSAP. So I think later today, if not tomorrow, I have a kickoff call with Grand Junction. So we do have an agreement with them. I've been made aware of Denver, Aurora, Westminster, and Broomfield as well. So as I am told that you're ready to move forward, what I'm asking for is for Carbine and for the PSAP to tell me who the key players are to have on a call with Entrado. Ken is usually going to be our contact at Entrado. I've done a couple of these with him already. You know, it's giving him a little bit of information, which Carbine is well aware of. We schedule a couple phone calls and we move forward on this as everybody's ready. And the only one I know that's kind of ready for the next step, and like I said, I think it's later today, is Grand Junction. The last tab on there, this is PSAP moves, but it's not moving to a different solution per se. I know, you know, we're working a little bit with Weld County. They're moving to a different area. Bent County wants to move from one room to another. Just different moves vary from, you know, equipment upgrade, which is being done at Logan Sterling. I have a program manager helping me on that one, but if you guys are looking to move equipment or equipment upgrades or whatever, this is where you're going to find that information. I'm not directly leading those projects, but I would be the one that can get you the information you need. And just to keep things simple, for a single point of contact, Jeff and I touch base on this before this call and make sure that everything's up to date. So
Jennifer's got her hand up.
Yep.
Tracy, going back to the Carbine, I just wanted to see if there was anybody on the call today that isn't on the Carbine list that would like to be added for situational awareness. Katie, you've got your hand up.
Good afternoon. Sorry, I was having unmute issues. Deck is also moving to Carbine, so I'd like to be added, and I'm just drafting an email to you, Tracy, now with that update.
Okay. And Jeff, is that a location that you already have? Because typically this information comes from the account team, so I get it from Jeff and Kevin. Happy to get it in an email from you guys too, but before I can start a project, it has to come from Jeff.
Which location was that? I'm sorry.
Okay, it's Durango Emergency Communications Center.
Yes, I did get that request from Brian. I've got to get the rest of the paperwork submitted. So Tracy, please add that to the list.
Okay. Yeah, you guys are welcome to be, I can be your point of contact, but to be on this particular project plan, I have to have documentation from Jeff. There's some SOWs that need to be signed, and I have to work with Lumen on a kickoff, or with Entrado on a kickoff. So this one's a little bit different than just moving equipment from one room to another.
Jack has got her hand up too.
I was just checking to see if you have Otero, Rocky Ford, La Junta phone system on your list here. I don't see it.
Jeff, have you heard on that one?
Those are the MEC projects.
Okay, so it wouldn't go on this list.
I don't know if we can put it on there, but it's not like the carbine migrations, but we're working through those. So I'm trying to see with the phone. I've stopped driving.
Well, Jeff, why don't you and I table that and talk about it?
Okay.
It really depends. I think I don't know that those entail program management support. If they do, we could add them to a different tab because yes, the MEC would be very different. Carbine is called out specifically because we have to pull resources from other companies and work on requirements with Carbine too. So they are a little bit different. But if I'm going to be involved in the MEC projects, then I personally would like them on here, Jeff.
Okay. Yeah.
This is Jackie. I'd like them on there too because this project has taken a long time.
Okay.
And I'd just like to see that the users group is apprised of projects that are in the works, whether it's, involving Carbine or just internal or whatever.
So let me circle back with Jeff. Either way, I'll put the MEC projects on here for next time. I just won't have updates for you guys if they don't include me. And that's just something we need to decide internally. If I'm not included, I can ask people for updates, or I can, if Jeff's going to be on the call, he can provide updates on those.
Thank you.
Yep. It's kind of nice to have everything in one place. I just needed to have a couple different tabs because it was getting too long of a list for me on that first tab. Anything else, guys, that issues I missed, projects I missed? You've had a little bit of time to absorb our go forward communication plan on the overall project. Again, if it doesn't work, just let me know how we can tweak it for you, because I'm hoping to make it smoother for all of us moving forward.
Andrew's got his hand up.
Hey, thanks. Tracy, just for the issue tracker, could you add our admin lines being down? And I'd also like to kind of bring up with this group, our admin lines went down a little before 9 o'clock last night. And despite multiple attempts to escalate it, we were not able to get a technician on site until after 7 o'clock this morning. So it took a little over 10 hours for us to get support on site. Granted, it's not 911, but when your non-emergency line is down, everybody's calling 911. So it winds up kind of becoming a 911 issue. I checked with a couple of my peers around the metro area just to see if it was a regional issue, if it was just us. And, the consensus was, well, of course, Lumen didn't send somebody out until this morning. It's not 911. It's not an emergency. So, and that just feels wrong to me. So just want to at least have a conversation about what we need to do to get a level of response that feels a little more appropriate when it is impacting a PSAP.
Okay. And you're with Denver, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Tracy, this is Jeff. Can you add that to our list when we talk, please?
Yes. Do you have all day to talk to me now? Getting be a long list. No. Yes, I will. Anything else, guys?
This is Kimberly. I just had a question for Andrew. Andrew, do you have TSP on those admin lines and they still didn't respond?
That is a good question. I believe we do, but I need to double check.
Okay. And that could be a good conversation for this group, just as an educational item, Steve, of talking about making sure that PSAPs have their administrative lines enrolled with TSP, and then CenturyLink for you to explain to us what process, if any, we need to do differently to make sure that your techs understand that these lines are TSP, which should require a different response. At least that's my understanding.
Kimberly, I appreciate that a lot. Anything, Tracy, that without having to come back next month to tell us, can you guys explain that today?
Well, I can, this is Andrew Freebert. I can elaborate. You know, when a circuit's marked TSP, it kind of just, it goes up to the top of the list. And obviously public safety, you know, is already kind of at that point. But for the particular ticket today, I think when it was originally called in, it was built as access 8 to 5, not 24/7. So I think that initially may have added a little bit of time to it. And you know, I don't know where that error occurred. It could have been at the knock and not the person who called it in. But the advice that I gave to, because I got a call about that early this morning, and you know, kind of an after action. I was engaged until a tech was on site, but kind of the after action was, you know, my advice was we have an escalation matrix for design services circuits. I mean, I could go in and in the TSP section on that ticket, it said, you know, 911. So it did appear that it was a TSP circuit. But, you know, my advice on that was to using the Lumen escalation matrix to escalate basically every hour until, you know, you're getting meaningful updates and, you know, some sort of ETA. And so it goes, you know, first level to fifth level. And you know, at 3 a.m., it may not go directly to the vice president of repair. They may have someone designated to take that call, but it should be going to a person who's working that is taking that fifth level escalation.
Hey, Andrew, would you mind starting at the bare bones level, what does TSP stand for, and how do we make sure that it's on our lines?
So that's a telephone service priority. It's a designation from the federal government. The Lumen cannot designate that for any customer. So there's a process that you go through to request it, and then the government the FCC will send that back to you when it's approved, and then that you can forward to you know, the account team that you work with. You know, if it's obviously 911 is the 911 lines themselves are their own thing, but you know, if we're talking admin lines or some other circuit that directly supports, you know, the public safety and the Peace app, you know, that's what would get you know, be eligible for a TSP designation. And then once you got that sent back and approved from the FCC, you can forward that to the account team that you work with on your admin lines, or, you know, your circuit or whatever it is we're talking about, to add that designation in on the circuit. It does take an order. There is some cost associated with it, but I don't have any, you know, general fees or anything like that I can tell you, because of that. You know, I help maintain on the repair side. I don't set those up. I just know the process.
Hey, Andrew, this is Jeff. I can get you the details, or Steve, I can send that over to you on the last information I received as far as the cost. So I will send that over.
That'd be great. Thank you both for explaining that kind of from the elementary level. And Jennifer, thanks for driving and showing the website as we talk. Michael Barry, you've had your hand up for a little bit.
I just wanted to follow up on this. With or without TSP, conversations we've had with Lumen at task force and users meetings was that they have an understanding that our admin lines are still PSAP lines. Whether or not they're taking 911 ESInet, calls are being transferred there, calls are being forwarded from and to there. And there was a commitment, I thought, from Lumen that they would be treating non 911 lines as a PSAP line. Is that not the case? Am I remembering that incorrectly?
This is Jeff. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Jeff.
Andrew, thank you. This will be one of the conversations I'm going to work with Tracy on. This has been a long-standing, for lack of better words, issue as far as how non-emergency lines are viewed when it comes to a PSAP. Unfortunately, the classification of those lines are typically a business line, which doesn't fall under the public safety NOC responsibility. But that's why I want to talk with Tracy and see what we need to do internally to be able to rectify that. So I'm not sure if you were correct or incorrect, but it is part of the discussion I want to have with Tracy on that.
Cool.
And from my perspective, what I advise and what I do when I call in to repair is on the initial ticket opening, just state this, these are admin lines for PSAP. Obviously, they are not worked by the PSS NOC, the 911 NOC. They only handle the direct 911 stuff. So it goes to the proper NOC, whether that's test center for local and like PRI, or it's, VoIP. So it would be kind of more on the national side. I just make sure that it's stated that these are admin lines for a PSAP, and they handle public safety traffic. And I state that upon a ticket opening and, advise that to be done. And then upon any escalations that happen, stating the same thing. So it's on there on the ticket multiple times.
Daryl?
Yes, when you send that information, could you also copy Jennifer and myself? We do have some information about TSP on the 911 program webpage, but if there's more that we can add, that would be helpful for us.
Yes, I can.
Andrew?
And thank you for all of that, Andrew. And to circle back to your comment earlier, so one of the very first things that we're going to do is do a complete review here of kind of, to your point, did somebody here somehow provide information that would have misled the NOC to put that information? I can't imagine that that's the case, but we're definitely going to double check. And the escalation matrix is helpful, but I feel like it puts the responsibility on the PSAP, an unreasonable responsibility on the PSAP to have to utilize that escalation every single time. You know what I mean? So that's part of the conversation. It sounds like Jeff is going to have with Tracy, but I feel like the escalation should be for kind of crazy off the wall situations where we don't have a process that exists. And I think the bigger issue right now is that the process that we have is not working. So that would be my only feedback. The escalation is helpful, but it shouldn't be our responsibility to escalate every time we have an issue like this.
And I agree. I mean, ideally, there wouldn't be a need for escalation because you would be receiving timely, meaningful updates regularly. Yeah. And when I say regularly, I probably hourly. And I'm a realist. I know that doesn't always happen, or maybe not even happen the majority of the time, and probably even less so, in an overnight after hours environment. But the one thing, and I spoke to Patrick on this morning. The one thing that is good, during that escalation process is when you speak to, no matter what step it is, a lead tech or, a NOC manager, they look at the ticket and they ask the right questions. They confirm the access hours, the contact info, and some other little things that they can look at, and just to make sure that everything is that we're seeing on the ticket is accurate, and then adding to that as needed, to ensure that we've got all the correct info. So in that scenario, it's helpful in some of those cases too.
Jennifer?
Yeah, I just wanted to show people on the Colorado 911 program, if you go to regulation of BES and scroll down to the middle of the page, we've got a link to the TSP website there. But if you want to skip the 911 program page and look, it's on the CISA website under Telecommunications Service Priority, or TSP.
Awesome. Thank you, Jennifer. And whenever I get the additional information from Lumen, I will blast it out to the group. Do we need to add this? Andrew, do you want to, and Denver Andrew, not Lumen Andrew, do you want to add that topic for an agenda item for a check-in, since it sounds like there's going to be some Lumen conversations between now and the next meeting?
Yes, please.
Okay. Jennifer, would you mind doing that? Throwing that on the agenda for the next meeting so we can do a formal check-in on it?
Sure.
Awesome. Thanks. Hey, Matt, what you got?
Just curious if anyone has successfully added TSP to a network link that is not necessarily voice. An IP link, Ethernet, older tech. Is that a thing, Andrew? Jeff?
As far as go ahead, Andrew.
I would just say that yes, I've seen TSP for both voice and data.
Okay, thank you.
Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, so we're thinking about our new Ethernet links to the DTRS, for example.
Yes, and I can't speak obviously for the FCC, but I've seen TSP for all sorts of different customers. It could be state and local customers, medical, hospital type things, even probably like some government contractor sort of companies. So, if it's justifiable, I think that there's a reasonable path to getting it, but I have seen both.
Thank you.
Yeah, in Boulder County, we have legacy lines, copper lines that are bringing VHF radio traffic back to our comm center. So that would be another example of it's specific to public safety radio, but it is a telephone line. Kimberly, you had your hand up. Did you have something?
I was just going to add that we've been successful adding TSP on engineered circuits. Some of our ring downs to the hospitals are all engineered circuits. So that was successful.
Was that pretty straightforward, or did you have to take a specific approach or tactic to getting that?
Nope, pretty straightforward. Just had to go through the process on the website and submit that circuit ID and information.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right, anything else on TSP? Good conversation. Thanks for all the information. It sounds like we'll have some follow-up next month too. Jennifer, or Zoom, do you want to move back to the original agenda? There we go. All right. We finished the issue tracker. Number 4, follow-up on routing questions from the disruption investigation. Jennifer?
Sure. So we had a disruption investigation, and the conversation was all about what happens when you have alternate routing in place, and would your calls route to the next on the list if your alternate, for example, PSAP has their calls going to PSAP B for a alternate route. And if PSAP B wasn't able to answer that, is it going to go to PSAP B's alternate route, or is it going to go to PSAP A's next on the list, if that makes sense? And the answer that we got, and I've got a lot of people on here who know, and so they're going to keep me honest. So Andrew and Lumen, but we wanted to clarify that if PSAP A has alternate route for PSAP B and PSAP C, and their calls are going to PSAP B, but PSAP B then somehow has a problem, those calls should go to PSAP C because they're still following PSAP A's alternate route list. However, if for some reason PSAP B goes in and does a manual route of their calls, in other words, PSAP B, for whatever reason, decides not to follow their automatic alternate routing and they put in a manual, then all the calls that are going to PSAP B, whether they're originating from the public or from A, are going to then follow the manual route. And I think it's just important for PSAPs who are backing each other up to have those conversations, and also for PSAPs to be aware that if you somehow if you decide for whatever reason to do a manual override of your normal alternate routing, that could have consequences that cascade. And Carl, I'll pause and see if Carl has anything else to add, and if anybody has any questions.
No, I think you kind of explained it well.
So the key again to that is, I think PSAP leaders, you just want to make sure that you know what your alternate route paths are. You should have a alternate route, a secondary alternate route, and a tertiary alternate route set up. And if you want help or guidance with that, I'm happy to walk through it with you. And we've also in the past held regional meetings to make sure that alternate routes are not creating an inadvertent loop where calls are not answered if more than one PSAP is down. So there are resources available to help with that, Daryl.
I just wanted to ask if that was clear to everyone, or if a real world example would be helpful, because I can give an example from the investigation where this came up.
Daryl, why don't you go ahead with the example? I think people could wrap their heads around it better.
Okay, yeah, basically just adding PSAP names instead of A, B, and C. So what this was Garfield County had, Carl, correct me if I get this wrong, but you had Vale set up as you had Grand Junction set up as your primary backup and Vale set up as your secondary backup, correct?
Correct. And then we had a multi-PSAP outage.
Right. So what happened was the calls should have been going to Grand Junction. Grand Junction set up a manual override to Montrose. So when Grand Junction wasn't available, what should have happened is that the calls should have gone to the Garfield County secondary backup, which is Vale. But because of that manual reroute at Grand Junction, the calls went to Grand Junction and then went to Montrose, which was overloading Montrose.
Yeah,
so,
and they actually started off going to, it worked correctly until, I'm not sure if Grand Junction had issues with their routing, but when they manually routed it, it started going to Montrose, but they were going as designed to Vale until that occurred.
Yep.
And we didn't know this would occur when it was done, so it caused a lot of confusion.
And there's really no way. There was really no way for Garfield County to know, because what was the manual reroute that Grand Junction did. So people just need to be aware that if you do a manual reroute, you're not only necessarily changing where your calls are going, but you're changing where the calls of any PSAP that has you as a backup are going as well. So that is definitely a danger in how the rerouting works. But it was a lesson learned as part of the investigation that we did into that multi-PSAP outage.
And then
Daryl, sorry guys, this is Ryan from Grand Junction. I just wanted to chime in. That particular outage, we've had a few. I know the word outage, I don't think we're allowed to say out loud, but that's what they still are. But I believe that one, our calls weren't going anywhere. So I think that's why our dispatch staff had to, with that particular incident, actually had to do a manual override process within Entrado to at least get our calls going somewhere. So just FYI.
Thank you, Ryan. And there are any number of reasons why a PSAP might want to do a manual reroute. I don't know if we
Carl?
Yeah, and maybe somebody from Lumen could kind of verify this or not, but I believe if that happens, we could have, if we would have known about it, had to manually reroute our stuff to Vail. We did get a call from Lumen asking where we wanted our calls to go, and we said we want them to continue at Vail. But that didn't happen.
Carl, I missed that. You said that that didn't happen even after you requested it?
No, because I think it might have been wording choices and we didn't know exactly what was happening because
Gotcha.
the calls were manually routed by Grand Junction to Vail. Originally, they were going to Vail. We said we want them to continue going to Vail, so I don't think they changed anything in their system. And then when that manual's done, I believe if we would have known that this was even, that this would have even occurred, that we could have each said, manually route our calls to Vail, manually route our calls to Montrose or whatever.
Carl, this is Jeff. Who did you put that request in with?
It would Lumen actually called us and asked where we wanted our calls routed, and we said keep them going to Vail.
Okay.
And I'm guessing that it's possible that the person you talked to, Carl, didn't realize that they had to do anything different since that was already your automatic reroute.
Yeah, and that's why I'm saying that if we would have known, we could have said manually route them to Vail if something like this occurs in the future. But if we do that, we also need to let Grand Junction know. So Vail doesn't get Grand Junction ARs.
Anything else on the routing examples, questions? I'll throw in one more thing to consider for everybody. Our PSAPs locally have a switch on the wall that is connected to a piece of hardware downstairs that would consider being a manual switch over. So if dispatchers need to bug out in an emergency and don't have time to log off, they can switch the switch, which would then override what was just discussed when it comes to what was set up in the background. So consider your processes for evacuation of your comm center and what those impacts are with any hardware that you might have in the building. Jennifer?
Yeah, I have a question about that, because it was my understanding that if you hit that pad device, that triggers your alternate routing. And so I want to ask Andrew from Andrew Freebert, when you hit that pad device, doesn't it go into the alternate routing? When Daryl and I were talking about manual routing, we're talking about calling the NOC and doing a manual route at the NOC, not a pad device.
So this is Kim Haig from Entrado. When you hit the pad, that invokes your first choice abandonment route.
Right. So it will go into what you have programmed ahead of time. So Steve, that's not the kind of manual override that Daryl and I were talking about.
Okay, thanks for the clarification. That's good to know for anybody that has it, and I will correct some of our documentation.
So I was listening to all this conversation and the explanations, and I was wondering if would the 911 community find it helpful if we put together like a best practices for alternate routing document just as a resource? Because I'm happy to work on that.
I think that would be great, Carl.
Yeah, I would agree that that'd be great because people that aren't having this conversation today or people in the future would have that information.
Or people
Sure,
that
and
need different information
have
like myself.
I have half of that built anyway, based on the conversations that we had several years ago, or even just a year and a half ago. So I'll bring that to the group for review at some point, hopefully before the next meeting.
That'd be great. Thanks, Jennifer.
Sure.
Any additional comments, questions about routing for number 4? We're moving on to number 5, working group on technical requirements. Andrew?
There's my mute button. Nothing to report.
All right, great. That was easy. Public comment. Open the floor. Seeing or hearing none, anybody have anything else for the good of the order? All right, I want to remind everybody that this afternoon, CenturyLink is hosting another round of tariff discussion. And then also next week, we're going to be hosting an ESInet user group meeting, or at least the distribution went out to the ESInet user group for a 911 strategic planning. This is for only PSAPs and authorities and those that represent the PSAPs and authorities. It is a closed meeting to continue our conversation about the long-term vision and future. If you don't have that invite and you need it, please let us know and we're happy to forward it to you. Anything else for the good of the order? I'll give you guys a handful of minutes back of your day. All right, thank you, everybody. We'll see you in the next meeting or next month. Appreciate everybody's participation.
Take care, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.